Seam taping allows us to create seams that look more believable and natural inside of Marvelous Designer. In real world, this looks something like this. It's a separate piece of fabric that is put on top of a seam to make it sealed off, to make the clothing waterproof, for example. But inside of Marvelous Designer, the way to use it is to create something like this, where the seams are very sturdy and thick, and they don't really get affected that much by simulation. They don't have folds and wrinkles. Instead, they're consistent in terms of their solidity. This feature is found either by pressing this little icon right here and then selecting the lines, the segments, or we can just directly click on the segments, and then there's the option called seam taping. Inside of this option, when we tick the box, we can choose the preset, which is not many presets to choose from, but they're basically more or less the same. One of them is just a little bit heavier in terms of the thickness of the fabric. There's also a detail menu where you can customize the presets, but I think the standard works pretty well for most of the cases. In some cases, however, seam taping doesn't do the job well enough, and in those cases another feature can be used. Two of them actually, but I'm going to talk about both, but one of them is less useful, and I will begin with that. The feature is called Skive, and as you can see, there is one panel called Bond and Skive, and if we tick one of them, the other gets deactivated. So you can choose only one of them, and the reason for that is because they're pretty much the opposite of each other. And the first thing to mention about both of those features is that they work only on the internal shapes, meaning that they cannot be applied to lines. If, for example, I select this edge and I go down, if I use any of those features, either Bond or Skive, the whole pattern is going to be treated as internal shape. So this feature is going to be applied across the whole garment. And what I have is two sleeves, and one of them has a shape that is that uses Skive, and another shape that uses Bond. And Bond is pretty much the same as seam taping. It even uses the same presets. It's just that the beautiful thing about it is that a custom shape can be used to create this effect, not just along the edges, but it can take any shape that you make. And the way it looks on the actual model is this way. As you can see, there's a line, and if I turn on the display for this feature, you can see clearly where the borders are. But I want to not just turn it on and off. I wanted to see what happens when I start to modify some of the things. Remember, Skive it's the opposite of taping, it's the opposite of Bond. It makes fabric softer, like a lot softer, and Skive has a percentage modifier. So look what happens if I start change this this option. So all the way to 100% means that the fabric, this internal shape, is exactly the same as the fabric outside of it, which is, in my case, this is the hoodie fabric. It's a cotton. But look what happens when I lower the amount. and then I go back to 100%, and then I lower that. So this makes the fabric lighter, more soft, and bond, like I said, is the opposite. It makes the fabric thicker, and it's actually quite visible in this case, where there are folds on the sleeves all around this border. And if I turn on the display, you can see clearly what the border is, but even without the display, the difference is quite stark. You can see that here in this region everything is flat, whereas outside everything is more or less the way cotton should behave.
If you enjoy this content or find it useful, please consider supporting me by buying me a cup of coffee via the link in the description.
Unlike Skive, Bond doesn't have the percentage option. It has the same option as the seam taping. As you can see, there is a preset, and inside the preset we can choose two of the default ones. In the case that I have here, this is a custom preset. I made it simply to illustrate what this feature does. But the implementation of this feature is not this. This is for illustration's sake only. If there was a case where you wanted your fabric to behave differently, for example, if there was a sleeve and you wanted a part of the sleeve to behave in a different way compared to the rest of the fabrics, the rest of the sleeve, it's best to cut it out, this piece, and then apply some kind of material from here, from this panel, because this is not how this feature should be thought about. This is not what it should be used for. I mean, it can be used in this way, but it's not efficient. When it comes in handy is in situations like this, when we have buttons or something that is stitched in a similar way, where we want to remove this waviness of the model, of the fabrics. One way to minimize this effect is to turn on the seam taping, sorry. And this is what happens if I do that. If I turn it on, definitely affects the garment. It definitely affects the fabric. It's more straight now. It's less wobbly and less wavy, but I still want to reduce this effect where there is a clear waviness to the whole area. I want this area to be straight. And in real world, if this was a shirt and this was the button extension, the fabric would fold on itself, go behind it, and it will create this area, this button extension area, much thicker. So this effect of this waviness would be much less. And so one way to do that without adding anything extra to the fabrics is to use the bond option. And remember, it works only on the internal shapes. So what we need to do first to activate this feature is we need to create an internal shape where we want the waviness to disappear, where we want the fabric to be thicker. So in this case, this would be this area. So using the polygonal tool, I'm making an external shape like that. And if I select the whole shape and go down, I can tick the bond option. Now the internal shape changes color. If I move it out of the way, you can see it's the same color as the seam taping, because as I mentioned before, it's exactly the same thing. It's just that it allows you to basically transform seam taping into any area that you want. And so when we created this is what happens when we simulate the fabric. So as you can see, it's it's pretty much just straight and flat, plain. And this is achieved without adding anything new. There is no extra pieces of fabric somewhere in here where I'm sewing something together with the main body of the shirt. It's just an internal shape with this bond feature turned on. This is also quite can be quite useful in situations like this when we have a hoodie or we have something like this, like cuffs on the sleeves, and we want them to be just flat. We want them to be more or less straight without any wrinkles and some kind of noise that might happen when we simulate clothing. And most of the time seam taping works, but when it doesn't, this is very useful to use bond instead. I'll just demonstrate it another time on the hoodie. Again, we need to create an internal shape, and I will begin by offsetting this line, something like 20. And then I need to close off this shape. So I will select polygonal tool, and then I will need to merge those points because the gray points indicate that this is open-ended line. So right click, join overlapping points, and now this is one internal shape. It doesn't really matter if the shape doesn't match the outside of the garment, because what's important is that the garment stays within the internal shape. But it's a good thing to keep everything clean and organized. And so with that done, all we need to do now is click on the shape, go into the options and tick the bond option. Again, the color changes, and in here we can see quite clearly where the border is. And if I simulate, again, it's a quite a clear indication where the change happens. The folds pretty much just get terminated in this whole area. And this leaves all the edges nice and solid without any noise, without any extra wrinkles that we might not need.